from the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. called for stronger women's participation in development and decision-making, saying no nation can claim real progress unless its women are empowered. Speaking at the 70th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, or CSW, in New York, the President said the condition of women remains one of the clearest indicators of a country's advancement. President Marcos noted that while nations often measure development through economic growth, infrastructure, and technology, the more important question is, how are the women doing? The chief executive stressed that societies move forward only when women are educated, safe, able to work, and free to lead and make decisions about their own lives. President Marcos Jr. added that women must be present wherever major decisions are made, in government, business, science, diplomacy, and peace building. The Philippine President also highlighted the long-standing contributions of Filipino women, describing them as leaders, innovators, educators, health workers, entrepreneurs, and the steady force within families and communities. Empowering women, he said, has always been a cornerstone of nation building in the Philippines.
It is certainly an honor to address the 70th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women on behalf of the people of the Philippines. We gather here to discuss what is, in truth, one of the most fundamental measures of a nation's progress, the status of its women. We often speak of development in terms of economic growth, infrastructure, technology, or trade. But there is a simpler and more human measure. How are the women doing? If women are educated, safe, able to work, able to lead, able to decide the course of their own lives, then the society is moving forward. If they are not, then no level of prosperity can truly be called progress. In the Philippines, we are proud to say that we have long believed that empowering women is not merely a matter of fairness. It is a cornerstone of nation building. Filipino women have always stood at the center of our national life, as leaders in government and business, as innovators, educators, health workers, entrepreneurs, and as a steady strength within families and communities. Their contributions continue to shape our democracy, our economy, and our national character.
Global cooperation to advance women's rights and break down barriers that continue to limit opportunities for women and girls. The President said the Commission's work remains crucial as many women around the world still face discrimination, inequality, and violence. President Marcos acknowledged progress in gender equality but stressed that the journey toward full equality is far from complete. He noted that in many societies, women continue to encounter obstacles that restrict their access to education, work, and leadership roles. The chief executive called on governments, institutions, and international organizations to work together in addressing these challenges, reaffirming the Philippines' commitment to global efforts that empower women. President Marcos also called for wider access to education and stronger economic opportunities for women, saying that education remains one of the most powerful tools for empowering women and transforming communities. The Philippine president also underscored the need to boost women's economic empowerment, saying women must have greater access to jobs, financial resources, entrepreneurship, and leadership roles. He noted that societies that fully include women in economic life become stronger and more resilient. President Marcos highlighted the continued contributions of Filipino women across key sectors and reaffirmed his administration's commitment to policies that expand opportunities and ensure women's full participation in national development. The Commission on the Status of Women is the UN's primary intergovernmental body dedicated to promoting gender equality and strengthening the rights of women and girls worldwide.
Our country has worked consistently to translate this belief into policy, strengthening protections for women, expanding opportunities for education and employment, and promoting women's leadership across all sectors of society. But even as we take pride in this progress, we recognize that the journey towards full equality, both in our country and around the world, is far from complete. Across many societies, women still face barriers that limit their opportunities. Too many continue to experience discrimination and violence. Too many girls are still denied the education that will allow them to shape their own futures. And that is why the work of this commission remains as vital today as it was 70 years ago. Education must remain at the center of all our efforts. When a girl is educated, the benefits extend far beyond the individual. They strengthen families, uplift communities, and expand the possibilities of entire nations. Economic empowerment is equally essential. Women must have access to employment, to finance, to entrepreneurship, and to leadership. Societies that fully include women in economic life are not only more just, they are stronger, they are more resilient. And we must remain united in confronting violence against women in all its forms. Violence erodes dignity, weakens communities, and undermines the very foundations of our justice.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has praised Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. for his efforts to promote peace and democracy in the Philippines. Guterres met with the President on the sidelines of the 70th session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women in New York. According to Malacañang, the UN chief also wished the Philippines well as it campaigns for a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council with elections set for June 3rd. Guterres described the Philippines as a bridge builder in the UN and said he hopes the country's voice will remain strong within the organization. He also expressed full support for the Philippines' chairship of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, noting the regional bloc's key role in strengthening global cooperation and upholding international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. President Marcos reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment as a founding member of the UN. He recalled his previous meeting with Guterres in Kuala Lumpur, where they discussed developments in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM. President Marcos reported continued progress in BARM and said regional elections are expected this year. The Philippine president thanked the UN for its support in the region, particularly through financial assistance from various UN agencies that help advance peace and development.
Dateline Malacañang.
90 overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, and dependents have returned to the Philippines as fighting intensifies in parts of the Middle East. The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, said more repatriation flights are already being prepared. Migrant Workers Secretary Leo Magpayo briefed reporters at Ninoy Aquino International Airport, or NAIA Terminal 3, on Sunday evening, saying the government is arranging additional routes and chartered flights to bring more Filipinos home. Of the 90 arrivals, 33 had their tickets paid for by the government. The rest already had bookings but were stranded after flight cancellations and disruptions. Magpayo said all returning Filipinos, whether stranded travelers or those requesting repatriation, received government assistance, including temporary shelter, transport, and financial support. Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA Administrator Patricia Yvonne Kaunan, said most of the repatriates came from the United Arab Emirates, while others had been working in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. The group includes engineers, teachers, caregivers, sales workers, domestic workers, architects, designers, and manufacturing employees. Some remain employed and hope to return once the situation stabilizes. The youngest repatriate was a 1-month-old infant, with several children and senior citizens also on the flight. Magpayo said the latest batch brings the total number of Filipinos assisted to more than 400. He added that the government has identified exit routes in 8 affected countries, though details are being withheld for security reasons. With several airports closed, many OFWs may need to travel by land to reach safer departure points. Magpayo noted that limited airspace in countries like Jordan has forced the use of alternative land crossings, including routes linking Israel to neighboring states. Government teams have been deployed across these exit points to receive and assist Filipinos as they move out of conflict areas. To speed up repatriation, Magpayo said charter flights will be announced in the coming days.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, is keeping close watch over more than 6,000 Filipino seafarers sailing through high-risk waters in the Middle East, including one crew member who remains missing. DMW Secretary Leo Magpayo said around 6,300 Filipino seafarers are currently aboard vessels operating in areas affected by rising regional tensions. He confirmed that DMW and Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, teams have already visited the family of the missing seafarer, as search and rescue operations led by the Omani Navy continue. Magpayo said the agency is monitoring at least 3 ships anchored in the Gulf of Oman, the Persian Gulf, and the Strait of Hormuz. He added that the DMW is verifying crew counts through direct communication with Filipino seafarers, manning agencies, and ship owners. The Migrant Workers Chief also issued DMW Advisory Number 11, aligning with the International Bargaining Forum's declaration of the Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, and Gulf of Oman as warlike operations areas. Under this designation, seafarers have the right to refuse sailing. Ship owners must implement heightened security measures, and compensation for death or disability is doubled. Kakdak stressed that contingency plans are in place for all overseas Filipino workers in conflict zones, and the government remains in constant coordination with international authorities to ensure their safety.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, the Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, has ordered the immediate recall of a staff member from the Migrant Workers Office, or MWO, in Bahrain after a viral video showed the employee speaking disrespectfully to overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, seeking cash aid. DMW Secretary Leo Magpayo confirmed the recall in a statement Monday, saying the behavior seen in the video was unacceptable. In the clip, the MWO staff member is heard telling OFWs to leave, insisting the cash assistance distribution had ended and that there were no more funds available. Some OFWs complained they had traveled long distances and were not informed ahead of time that the aid had ran out. The staff member was also heard telling them to report to anyone if they wished. Meantime, DMW Undersecretary Dominic Rubia Tutay clarified the types of financial assistance provided to OFWs. She explained that the $20 to $50 cash aid is meant for immediate needs such as food, clothing, and medicine, while a separate $200 assistance is given to homebound OFWs at the airport. Additional financial support is provided upon arrival in Manila. Rubia Tutay noted that many OFWs rely on this assistance, especially those who return home without salaries or savings. Other government agencies, including Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, Department of Health, or DOH, Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, and Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, also extended support under a whole-of-government approach. Secretary Kakdak assured OFWs that the DMW remains committed to serving them with humility, respect, and hard work.
Dateline Malacañang.
Telecommunications giants Globe and PLDT Smart are rolling out free call hubs nationwide to help Filipinos contact their loved ones in the Middle East amid the ongoing conflict. Globe announced the setup of hotline hubs in its stores across the country, giving families without access to mobile phones or international calling services a way to reach relatives overseas. The company said the initiative aims to support communities with limited means of communication during times of uncertainty. PLDT Smart is also opening free call stations in select stores in major malls. The move expands earlier instructions from PLDT Group Chairman Manuel Pangilinan to activate emergency communication support for Filipinos in affected countries. These call hubs complement other free services already offered to Filipinos in the Middle East. Globe is providing a complimentary roaming package that includes 15 minutes of calls, 15 text messages, and 1 gigabyte of data valid for 7 days. It has also extended load credits and postpaid bill adjustments to customers in Iran and Iraq. PLDT Smart, meanwhile, is offering free calls to the Philippines via its Tinbo mobile app for users in Bahrain, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates until March 15. In the Philippines, PLDT Home and Enterprise subscribers can continue making free IDD calls to the Gulf states, Israel, and Iran until March 15th, while Smart and TNT users may do so until March 14th. These efforts follow President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s directive to ensure overseas Filipinos remain connected with their families. Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT Secretary Henry Aguda, and National Telecommunications Commission, or NTC Chair Elia Bianca Lopez, have also instructed telcos to help maintain communication lines between Filipinos abroad and their loved ones at home.
Dateline Malacañang.
House leaders are pushing a measure that would allow the president to suspend or reduce excise taxes on fuel during major economic emergencies to help shield Filipinos from surging pump prices. Speaker Boji D and House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos filed House Bill No. 8292, which amends the National Internal Revenue Code to give the President, upon the recommendation of the Finance Secretary and in coordination with the Energy Secretary, the authority to temporarily halt or cut fuel excise taxes when global oil prices spike. Under the proposal, the President may act if Dubai crude averages at least $80 per barrel for 3 straight months, or if a national emergency triggers extraordinary increases in domestic fuel prices. Any suspension would apply only to specific petroleum products and would last up to 6 months, extendable by Congress but capped at 1 year. The President would also be required to report to Congress within 15 days of issuing the order and every month thereafter, detailing the basis for the suspension, projected revenue losses, and its expected impact on fuel prices and inflation. The measure comes as global oil markets face renewed volatility due to escalating tensions in the Middle East, raising fears of supply disruptions and higher crude prices. D and Marcos noted that the Philippines imports nearly 90% of its petroleum from the region, making the economy highly vulnerable to geopolitical shocks. They warned that rising fuel prices hit the poorest sectors the hardest: farmers, fisherfolk, transport operators, small businesses, and low-income households whose livelihoods depend on affordable fuel. The House leader said the bill would give government a flexible, targeted tool to stabilize prices during periods of severe volatility and help ease the burden of consumers.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos has filed a resolution seeking a congressional inquiry into how telecommuting or remote work can be expanded nationwide amid rising fuel and electricity prices triggered by tensions in the Middle East. Under House Resolution No. 855, the Committees on Labor and Employment and Trade are directed to review the implementation of the Telecommuting Act and other flexible work arrangements. The goal is to reduce workers' transportation expenses and lower operational costs for businesses. Marcos noted that despite existing laws and a Civil Service Commission circular, industries still differ widely in adopting remote work. He stressed that work-from-home setups are not only a traffic solution, but also a safeguard for the economy against global energy shocks. The inquiry will also examine the country's digital infrastructure and internet quality to ensure remote work can be implemented effectively. The review is expected to produce new policies that will ease the financial burden on Filipino families.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
Dateline Malacañang. From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.